This is Mick Foley.
This is Harley Race.
This is Shelton Benjamin.
This is Mr. Wonderful Paul Orndorff.
This is the Monster Abyss.
And this is Daniel Bryan.
This is JBL, and you're watching the MWF.
Be there live.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the March edition of MWF Extra. I'm Dan Moratti, and now we have the first of two special guests tonight via telephone, all the way from Tampa, Florida, the one and only, the genius leaping Lanny Poffo. Lanny, how are you tonight?
Very well. Who's the other special guest you have?
Harley Race will be joining us in just a little bit.
Harley Race?
The one and only.
Yeah, well, no wonder I'm working preliminary.
Well, you got to open up the show, Lanny. What can we say? Things haven't changed in life.
It's an honor to do that for the great Harley Race.
Lanny, most wrestling fans haven't heard from you in a while. What is going on in the life of Lanny right now?
The most exciting thing going on in my life right now is all over my webpage, LannyPoffo.com. And my new book, Limericks from the Heart and Lungs, has the good news and bad news is it was nominated for the Newbery Medal. It did not win, but the nomination was indeed the reward because the Newbery Medal is excellence in children's literature. Every year the American Library Association picks one book that is distinguished in children's literature, and I was nominated. I did not win, but I did win the Jarson Beck Award, and that was excellent. And right now I'm working on a concept to change my Limericks from the Heart and Lungs into a 30-minute animated TV show.
You're going to turn this book into an animated television program, Lanny?
That's right.
I think that would be tremendous.
Still on the drawing board, but it's all going to be based on the characters in my book. And it's all going to be for the same reason. And the reason is 4,000 children every single day in the United States start smoking. These 4,000 children every single day are at a 15 times greater risk than non-smokers for sinking into the world of drugs. And of course, with the drugs comes the bad grades and the dropping out of high school and the teenage pregnancy and the suicide. So non-smokers have a much less risk at all of those maladies of the teen years.
Lanny Poffo, this is something you truly believe in. It seems like you have a true passion for this smoking and drug abuse in our teenage children in this country.
Well, it's like this. Harley Race is one of the few wrestlers that's alive from my era, right?
Well, they're slowly but surely fading away, unfortunately.
Yeah, and I figure, what am I supposed to do about it? We've got to catch them young. Remember the Green Mile?
Yes.
Catch them young, that's my motto. Well, I thought to myself, the only way we could do it is to catch them at the fork of the road. Now, I'm a divorced man. My daughter is 22 years old. She's going to be 22 May 29th. And she's a non-smoker. And I said, well, this is one thing that my ex-wife and I can take pride in. At least we raise a non-smoker. And, so we have something in common that puts us one thing ahead of O.J. Simpson.
Unbelievable, Lanny
Poffo. I can still
Poffo.
get along with my wife, and we can still be proud of one thing at least. And as you know, O.J., his life took another turn.
O.J. Simpson, I understand the O.J. Simpson. I remember that trial, or lack of trial, from about 10 years ago now.
My divorce was more amicable than O.J.'s, wouldn't you say?
As long as the former Mrs. Poffo is still alive, I'd say she wound up in a better state than the former Nicole Brown Simpson.
There you go. Well, they even knew your name. Well, what was the name of the boyfriend?
Ron Goldman, I believe?
Yes, and they always say he was their friend. Didn't say anything else. Wasn't that hilarious? Anyway, my point is, I want to get this book in the hands of more children than, because the problem still prevails. And every place I go, I still see children with cigarettes dangling from their mouths, and I want to slap them right out of their faces. But what can you do? You got to catch them younger than you're catching them. In other words, they succumb to peer pressure in the absence of genuine leadership. Somebody's got to take a stand. I've got 29 years till I'm 80 years old. I'm going to be the one.
Well, Lanny, this is something you believe in. You have a Cauliflower Alley Club of smoking issues for young children, and I believe that's very admirable in this day and age.
Well, thank you. Three smokers with nothing to do decided to go to the zoo. As they lit up to smoke, I heard one monkey joke. Hey, look, human see, human do. If smoking is cool as they claim, then why is it always the same? The first time you try, you wish you could die. The last time, achieving your aim. When Columbus arrived on our shore, he discovered tobacco galore. The peace pipe was passed, although peace didn't last. The pipe killed more people than war. That's just three. There's 335 in the book. I recommend, and here's what's great. In my website, I don't tell you where to go on Amazon.com. I give you my home address, and I tell you how to send your check or money order to my home, and I autograph it any way you like. I've eliminated the middleman completely, because I believe that the people, when I was 12 years old, I asked Art Linkletter for his autograph. He told me to buzz off. He did not say buzz.
Well,
he told
Lanny,
me to F off. And I was deeply devastated and hurt by that. Then 6 years later, I had my first professional wrestling match, and a 12-year-old boy asked me for my autograph, and I couldn't believe in only 6 years the roles became reversed. And I was never too busy to sign an autograph. And when I was in Boston with you, with your big convention that you had.
Oh, we remember that, October 2004, Lanny.
And that was the day I first had my Limericks book, and we sold 2 boxes of books that day. And you know what? There was not one wrestling fan that can say that I refused to sign their autograph.
You were a true gentleman that day, Lanny. You could tell that you really enjoyed being around your fans.
I don't mess, something, what's more important, the promoters or the wrestlers? Answer false. The wrestling fan is the most important aspect of the sport. Without the fan, the sport does not exist. That goes for wrestling, baseball, football, anything. They do not play before an empty arena. Eventually, they stop playing the sport altogether.
I agree with that statement 100%, Lanny. And for more information on that book, of course, again, you can check out www.lannypoffo.com. The address is on the screen. Lanny, your name has been in the news again lately. I'm not even sure if you're aware of that. In a recent radio interview, Ole Anderson was on your case big time, going as far to say that in wrestling locker rooms you would perform oral services on yourself to amuse the wrestling fans. Do you have some kind of a grudge with Ole Anderson, and why has he continued to make these derogatory remarks about you?
Do I have a grudge against Ole Anderson? First of all, we were on a radio show, and he wouldn't even speak to me. He waited until I was off the air. The reason he talks behind my back is because we were in a battle royal, and Gene Anderson got behind me, threw me down, and tried to block any exit without me knowing that it was a shoot. As soon as I found out it was a shoot, I did a powerhouse sit-out, did a head and arm lever, threw him on his back and pinned him and didn't let him up for a whole long time. Then I challenged Ole, and he turned white. Now he's making remarks about me. And I asked you, Ole Anderson, the same thing I asked you when you... First of all, I never did that in the dressing room. It's just a rumor that he heard. And then he said, is it true that you do oral sex on yourself? And I said, can you do it? He says, no. And I said, the fact that you know you can't proves that you've tried.
You made a very good point right there. How would he know if he didn't try?
Well, his mouth is big enough, his dick is too small.
Well, this sounds like something that could be settled on one of these legend shows, perhaps a grudge match down the line. Have you seen Ole Anderson in person anytime recently to talk about why he has these ongoing issues with you?
Tell him for me that he's a pussy.
Fans, you've heard it there first. Lanny Poffo is not a big fan of Ole Anderson. I have a feeling you will not be sending him a complimentary edition of your book.
And by the way, his book was written by Scott Teal. My book was written by Lanny Poffo. It says right on his cover, written by Scott Teal.
You did it yourself, Lanny, from top to bottom. And again,
the reason that he did a whole book knocking Ric Flair. He says he talked about highly overrated Ric Flair. When I was in Charlotte, North Carolina in 1976 and 77, Ric Flair was the man. They ran 3 towns a night. His town always sold out. Didn't matter who his babyface was. Wahoo McDaniel, Ricky Steamboat. It didn't matter. Paul Jones, he drew with everybody. Can you comprehend what I'm telling you?
Lanny, yes, I can read between the lines on that one. Ole Anderson's
Ole
book.
Anderson would be in his town, which he only made $40 in, which was the minimum, because that's what it was when the house was bad. And he would always knock Ric Flair behind his back and then kiss his ass to his face. And I noticed that, and I brought it up to him. And that's why he didn't like me, because I was the truth. And he thinks I'm also stupid, and he always bragged about how much money he had and how tough he was. Well, it'd be so tough, why didn't he accept my challenge after I stretched his brother, Gene Anderson? And if he's so much smarter than me, then why am I richer than him?
Well, perhaps Ole will answer these allegations. I'm not sure, Lanny, but I just, when I read a transcript of the interview where he said you were performing these oral actions on yourself, my eyes nearly popped out of my head. I couldn't believe what I was reading. I find that to be highly insulting.
Well, I deny all charges.
Well, Ole Anderson, perhaps someday he will have the spine to confront you either voice to voice on a television or radio interview, or perhaps in person at some kind of Legends reunion down the line. I would enjoy seeing that, Lanny, because you're one of the few people in this business that I've come across that you do tell it like it is.
Well, so does Ole, but he tells it, you see, it's like George Costanza. It's not a lie if you believe it.
Absolutely. Let's talk about a little bit more about the truth about what's going on in the life of Lanny Poffo. As many people know, you're part of a wrestling family, one of the great families in the history of wrestling. Your father was Angelo Poffo, a man that holds the world record for sit-ups. Your brother was former WWF and WCW World Heavyweight Champion Randy Macho Man Savage. What was it like being a child growing up around the great profession that we call the business?
Oh, it was exciting and excellent, and I wouldn't trade a minute of it. And I was just very lucky to have had an opportunity to participate in the sport that I loved, especially since, I would have loved to have been a baseball player, but unfortunately they take a number 2 pencil and strike your name. And they do the same thing in wrestling, but I was just lucky to have had the experience and been to all the countries that I've been to, and it never cost me a dime.
When you started out early in career, Lanny, what territories did you work in? Who were some of your early feuds with?
Let's see, I started out in Aurora, Illinois was my first wrestling match. I went to Racine, Wisconsin. This is before I graduated high school. And my first actual promotion was Paducah, Kentucky. And then I went on to wrestle for Mrs. Gunkel, the widow of the late Ray Gunkel.
Yes.
And then we went on to, by the way, ask Ole Anderson how many illegitimate children he has that he hasn't supported.
If we have Ole Anderson on this program in the future to talk about his book, Lanny, I would ask him that question as a favor to you, since we are...
Illegitimate children that he never supported. Ask him, Lanny Poffo wants to know how many illegitimate children he has all around the United States that he has never supported.
Now, Lanny, is this just your opinion, or is this a statement based on fact?
Well, just ask him and watch him blink. Okay, and then I went from Mrs. Gunkel, Ann Gunkel, the widow of the late Ray Gunkel, and Mrs. Gunkel is now deceased. Tom Ernesto was the booker. And then from there, let's see, I went to work for Eddie Farhat, who is the Sheik. Remember?
Yes, up in the Michigan area.
Michigan, Ohio. I was teamed with my father, where we had the World Tag Team belts, World Tag Team belts of Ohio and Michigan. That was the only place that were recognized, right?
Yes.
And so isn't that a little odd to be the world champion of Ohio and Michigan?
Oh, they have world championship belts on independent promotions where they're only defended in one city, but that's a different story for a different time. I believe it.
I just think, why couldn't we just be the Michigan, Ohio champions? Why couldn't we just say that?
Well, world, I guess, has a little bit more prestige and a little bit more ring to it.
Yeah, but more credibility would be the local. You know, it's like, well, at least he's not claiming too much. You know, but anyway, it was still a great time for me. And then we went Amarillo, Texas. Another person he knocks very profusely in his book is Terry Funk, who I consider all the Funks, Dory and Terry, to me were the the epitome of wrestling. And I'm just so glad that they were, I was able to go to Amarillo, Texas and work for those guys, because what an excellent group of people they were. Talking about Dory Funk Jr. and Terry Funk.
The Funk family, another one of the great families in the annals of this industry.
That's right. And then we went to Charlotte, North Carolina, where I had the opportunity to meet Ole Anderson, who fathered many children. Some he claimed, some he did not. And then, then on and on. And then finally in 1985, I went to the World Wrestling Federation, and it was 8 of the top years of my life.
And you look back at it, you just described a tremendous career in all of about 5 minutes, but let's talk about a little bit more in specific. Your father's promotion was described as an outlaw promotion, one that really wasn't affiliated with the NWA. How did the NWA make life difficult for the Poffo family wrestling promotion?
Well, first of all, I resent the term outlaw. Outlaw is if I put a mask and a gun on and rob a bank. I would call that an outlaw. But if Shakey's Pizza goes up against, I don't know, I don't eat pizza. Name another pizza. Domino's. Little Caesars. How come in America they can have several pizza companies, and the public has an opportunity to choose which one they like the best? I think that should be the same with wrestling. Now we have TNA and the WWE. At least people have a choice. As soon as the people have no choice, the competition is gone and the fans suffer.
Right, everybody suffers in that case, you're right.
Right, and the wrestlers suffer too.
Now, at that point, did the NWA try and make life difficult for your father's promotion? As you mentioned earlier, the Gunkles, they had issues down in Georgia. Jim Wilson wrote about it in his book, Chokehold. What about in the Poffo family business? Did the NWA do anything perhaps one might describe as underhanded?
Well, I'm really the wrong one to ask about that. I was enlisted. I did not. I was drafted. I did not enlist into the outlaw or opposition that you were talking about. I was wrestling in Portland. I was about to go to Los Angeles, and I got the call from my parents and my brother, come on and help us out here, and I did. I went and did what I was supposed to do. As far as any opposition or underhandedness, none of these promotions lasted anyway, right?
Oh, without a doubt.
I mean, there was not one promoter that we're talking about that's still in business.
No, you're right.
So whatever they did or didn't do, it did us no lasting ill and them no lasting benefit. So what's the point of talking about it now?
Perhaps.
I mean, nobody's still in business. If they are in business, they're making a meager existence living.
Perhaps the old NWA affiliates, they put a lot of negative karma out into the world, and when Vince McMahon comes swooping through, they get a taste of their own medicine.
Right, and I remember the Dr. D. David Schultz tape with John Stossel when he slapped him and boxed his ears.
Yes.
And they asked Vince McMahon, is this a sport? He says, not in what is considered a sport, no. And he says, then what is it then? And he says, I don't know. And of course, the old school people went nuts. They said, oh, how could he do that? But what he proved is, by admitting that, he actually increased the demographics tenfold.
Without a doubt.
Well, I'm just saying, there's no doubt in my mind because of the statistics. The people kept buying tickets in record numbers after he admitted that it's not a sport. And then he called it sports entertainment, and now he just calls it entertainment.
It's amazing how the business has evolved over the past 20 years, isn't it?
Oh, yes. But there's still some similarities. The fact is they're still selling tickets. And the times, and when the fans don't think it's good, they prove it by not buying tickets.
Absolutely. The fans have their vote every time they decide to put down cash to purchase a ticket or order a pay-per-view.
Mm-hmm.
Let me ask you this, Lanny. Eventually, as time went on, the Poffo promotion eventually wound up in a cross-promotional angle with Jerry Lawler and Jerry Jarrett's group, I should say. Mm-hmm. What led to that taking place?
We were living in Lexington. They were living in Nashville and Memphis, and we were trying to go for Rupp Arena, and Randy was very vehemently challenging Jerry Lawler, and then finally, thanks to Jimmy Hart, we all got together, smoked the peace pipe as just an expression, and then Randy was versus Jerry Lawler, packed the arenas for Jerry Lawler's promotion, and Jerry Lawler in turn brought a lot of his talent to the ICW.
So there was a lot of legitimate bad feelings between the two groups at the time.
But it all, everybody wound up drinking out of the same cup.
So in the end, that's all that matters, I guess.
Politics makes strange bedfellows.
Oh, what a statement to make in the world of professional wrestling. But again, that's a different story for a different time. What led to you and your brother making your way to the World Wrestling Federation in the mid-'80s?
I believe what happened was when Dr. David Schultz came to Memphis, he teamed up with Randy, and he made some allegations against Hulk Hogan, Dr. D did. And then Vince McMahon got a hold of the tape and then saw the Macho Man jumping off the top rope onto the floor. At the time, nobody had ever done that. Now, of course, everybody's doing it. You know, they're doing triple half gainers off the top rope and into a cup of water. And but at the time, nobody was doing it. And he says, "Wow, this guy's great." And Jimmy Hart helped procure and then Macho Man was born. And then I was going to go to the AWA, but Randy managed to get me in underneath, and 5 years later, I'm on top for 4 months.
It's amazing how it can come and go so quickly in your career. Now, as you mentioned earlier, a moment ago, Randy Savage, as you said, the first flyer going from the top rope to the floor. Also, I believe, is the first person that used tables down in the Memphis territory. He truly was an innovator, and maybe he doesn't get credit where credit is due in a lot of ways.
Well, all you have to do is see the match between Randy and I against the Rock and Roll Express, and you'll see that Ricky Morton going right through the table.
You call it, Lanny. You call it as you see it. That's why we love having you on this program. WWF, it was a wild time. They call it the Wild Wild West in a lot of ways, but your stint started off, you were getting victories left and right, and then eventually you started to slow down a little bit. You wound up maybe in the mid-card, the undercard. For someone that started off so hot in WWF, how did your push slow down a little bit?
I'll give you the answer in 2 words. George Scott, when he was either lost his book, stepped down, was fired, whatever, as soon as he was gone, I was through. But guess what happened? They used me as whenever the new heels would come in, Jake the Snake Roberts, he'd wrestle Leaping Lanny. Kamala, he wrestled Leaping Lanny. Terry Funk, Leaping Lanny. And I was the first foil for all of them. And that's a job with tremendous responsibility, because most of these people were getting ready for a stint with Hulk Hogan. And their first impression is always the best, and you can't look good unless you beat somebody good. And in this case, it was me. Now, no matter who remembers all these losses, it doesn't matter because I've still got the money.
That's right, and people still remember the name and the face, so that's all that counts.
No, but whatever they remember, it doesn't matter, because the only thing that counts is what the bank teller counts. I was in this business for the money, and not just to make it, but to keep it and to earn it and to let it work for me. And that's why I'm in a situation where I can say that all the proceeds of my book are going to Special Olympics. It's called the Special Olympics, and there's something about that name. It's taking people off the bench and putting them back in the game. No one should ever be denied the chance to grab the center stage or share an honest, open smile with other boys and girls their age. For personal satisfaction or just having a little fun, the spirit of competition is the birthright of everyone. It's a very special moment when they pass that torch and run. In the words of Charles Dickens, God bless us, everyone.
I couldn't have said it any better myself, Lanny, although I am certainly not the poet that you are. As you mentioned earlier, a lot of the guys would come in, they want to get them hot for bigger programs down the line, and who was the person they put them with? Lanny Poffo. As they say, the first impression is everything, and obviously the WWF had a lot of trust in you to be able to put these top heels in situations with you where you could help them advance.
And the other thing they learned about me was I was always on time, never missed a shot, and that can kill a crowd. Anything, like, when you have a guy that's on top and he doesn't show up for whatever reason, Either was he too doped up or just missed his shot because he's dumb. But I always thought that being on time and showing up early was important, and they finally gave me the opportunity to become the Genius. And a few months down the line, I got to work with the great Hulk Hogan on Saturday night's main event. The Genius was victorious against the mighty Hulkster, and the World Wrestling Federation fell. For a billion Hulkamaniacs who live and die for Hogan saw the Genius was triumphant at the bell. They saw their hulking hero as he wallowed in self-pity, like the victim of a somewhat heinous crime. And now he has a partner even stupider than he is, so I'm sure he'll be the loser one more time. Mr. Perfect, you're the man who's never wrong. Can you prophesize what we're about to do? By the power of the Genius and the world's smartest man, rely on my incredible IQ.
Lanny Poffo, unbelievable. Let me ask you a question now that may touch upon your true feelings, so to say. As we said here, you wound up in the opening matches trying to make others look good, and your brother shot to success and very quickly in his time in the WWF. Were you ever jealous of the Macho Man Randy Savage's success? Perhaps not as a brother, but as a professional.
Neither one, because it's a yellow brick road. You can turn left or you can turn right. Red Bastien is one of my favorite people in the world, and he told me you can get on the happy bus or you can get on the sad bus. He chooses to get on the happy bus. Do you know Red Bastien?
Yes, from the Cauliflower Alley Club. Indeed, I do.
Well, when you see him, you tell him that I still remember him for saying that to me.
Well,
I choose to get on the happy bus.
Are you a member of the Cauliflower Alley Club, Lanny?
Not yet. I haven't had the opportunity. I've not joined it, but I certainly have this. I will one day.
Lanny, we're trying to recruit people for the Cauliflower. As you know, it's the only organization I know of in the world that is here to help out professional wrestlers in need, whether it be through medical bills or just having a difficult time in life. I think it's something you'd enjoy a great deal.
Yes, and I sure do like Las Vegas, so I definitely will be joining very soon. It's just that I've been so busy doing what I do. I'm a certified credit counselor by day, and I'm also trying to get my word across. I'm a certified speaker in Pinellas County schools, and I'm so busy with all my charities and working with the American Lung Association, American Heart Foundation, the Students Against Tobacco. I'm very busy all the time, and it's just hard for me to spread myself very thin.
Well, that's understandable. It sounds like you're extremely busy down there, but
last year I met Nick Boffinkel, and he invited me down there. Is he the president up there?
he is the vice president, I believe.
Who's president?
Red Bastien, and Carl Lauer is the executive vice president, and then Nick Bockwinkel is the vice president.
Well, tell Red Bastien that I told him I remembered about the happy bus and the sad bus.
Without a doubt, Lanny will pass that along. Let me ask you this.
I don't want him to think that he wasted his wisdom on me. I want him to realize that he changed my life with those pearls of wisdom. Because, you know, advice is not usually good to give because wise men don't need it and fools don't heed it. But I want him to know that this fool heeded his advice and became wiser.
We would be happy to pass the message along. We have friends from the Cauliflower on this program all the time to talk about the great work they do, Lanny. As we continue on in this program, let me ask you another question that I've always found very interesting. Perhaps you can enlighten the fans at home, the perhaps what you'd call smart fans. A lot of people have said over the years that the Macho Man Randy Savage was very jealous of his wife at the time, Miss Elizabeth, to the point that he would take her and lock her in closets and boiler rooms at the various arenas. Now, obviously, he's your brother. She was your sister-in-law. If anyone knows the truth behind this, it's you, Lanny. So please let us know. What went on here?
Okay, first of all, let's not speak ill of the dead. Elizabeth is deceased as far as 2003, but let me just shed a little light on that. Regardless of what you heard, all Randy was trying to do is get her own dressing room, a private dressing room. And if that's jealousy, so be it. I think it's courtesy, and I think it's being protective. But let's leave it there. He's trying to get her own place where so she can enjoy her own privacy.
So you just think, as a lot of things in professional wrestling, this was just blown out of proportion to try and have a story to tell?
Well, let's put it this way. You asked me if I was jealous of my brother.
Yes.
My answer is no. But anytime anybody becomes successful to the extent of the Macho Man, there is going to be jealousy. It didn't come from me, but it was everywhere else.
Oh, without a doubt. 1980s, the boom period that seemed like it would never end. A lot of people have said it was a Wild West, sex, drugs, and rock and roll type lifestyle. You were around it, Lanny. What kind of an effect did the travel schedule and the lifestyle have on the boys that were going from town to town just about every day of the year?
Well, I always made sure that I got my rest, and I never did anything that made me feel bad in the morning. I always said, I have a choice to feel bad in the morning or worse in the morning. I'd rather feel bad in the morning. So I ignored debauchery, and I stayed away from anything that would. I believe in health, wealth, and wisdom, and that's why I'm 51 and don't look it. I mean, go on my website, LannyPoffo.com, and there you'll see where everything that I believe in lies. I don't want to, clutter it up with a lot of plugs and advertisements.
Oh, please, Lanny, plug away. That's what this program is all about.
Listen, I just say go on my website and check it out, and you'll learn what I feel and what I believe.
Well, it's almost a sad statement to make, Lanny, but at least you're alive to be able to tell people about it.
That's right. My brother is too. And Elizabeth is gone. Mr. Perfect is gone. It'd be easier to tell you who's here.
Sad but true. Look at our good friend the Iron Sheik. Look at what happened to him. A great guy, a wonderful person, but all of his medicine problems and trials and tribulations over the years have led him down a really negative path.
Well, let's put it this way. In 1974, I met the Iron Sheik when he was a young man, Cosgrove Azeri, and I never saw a greater athlete in my life. He was made out of stone, head to toe. And now he's like, I don't know. I still love the guy but what happened was he came from the old country where he was denied every type of pleasure and freedom. And what happens, they get to America, and after having had no freedom, they abuse it.
Exactly. He had too much of the forbidden fruit, Lanny.
Well, and the thing is, it's too bad because what a great talent and what a unique personality he brought to wrestling.
He really is, and we've had our issues that have been documented on this program. Back in August, we were almost killed. We were almost blown up in that car accident coming back from Blackstone, Massachusetts. I'd just like to see the Sheik recover and get back to the point where he can be as, the kind Sheik 24/7. Because, like you said, he really is a great human being, funny individual, a lot of great stories to tell. It's just, I think there's a lot of confusion at this point.
Well, I've always liked him, and I've always admired him, and I definitely wouldn't blaspheme him or take advantage of him or kick him when he's down.
Absolutely not. I think that's one of the problems there is in wrestling. When someone sees someone down, they try and get a cheap shot in to perhaps put themselves over a little bit more, and I've never agreed with that.
And as he once said, I defeated Jabroni Bob Backlund.
He did, without a doubt, and that shot him into wrestling infamousy.
That's right.
He'll always be remembered as the man that ended an almost 6-year reign and started the legend of Hulkamania, or at least the WWF version of Hulkamania. But let me ask you this, Lanny. What led from you to go from leaping Lanny Poffo to all of a sudden this villainous genius, an active wrestler, to someone that became almost a part-time wrestler and a part-time manager over the years?
It was a lucky break to become the genius, and I loved the role, and it was, by the way, my match against Hulk Hogan is there, also my appearance on Regis Philbin. If you click on videos, it's also there. Of course, if Regis gets a hold of it, I'm sure they'll tell me to cease and desist, but until he does, you can watch it on LannyPoffo.com.
Check out that website, fans at home. Tremendous time, a tremendous era, a very memorable gimmick, the genius Lanny Poffo. You were also around the time back when a really bad downtime for the WWF back in 1991 and 1992 when they had the drug scandal and the steroid scandal and the sex scandals. And right about now, they're facing a similar situation with the recent death of Eddie Guerrero. They're talking about installing these legitimate testing again. You were around in that time. How legitimate was the testing that the wrestlers faced at that time?
Oh, they used to... I urinated in more cups than urinals during that time. And it was legit. And they had a lot of wrestlers that had to take little vacations.
Yes, in 1992 it was the year of the vacation, as half the roster seemed to disappear and never come back again.
That's right.
Now, right around that time, maybe a year or so later, you departed the WWF. How did that come about?
I was let go, and that was between the Mr. Perfect era and the Beverly Brothers era.
Right.
I had about 6 months off, and then they brought me back for about a year. And hey, if the phone rang, I'd still pick it up because I consider my time in the World Wrestling Federation, World Wrestling Entertainment, whatever you want to call it, the best years of my life. And I enjoyed every minute of it. I didn't find it all that difficult either. You know, it wasn't. I enjoyed traveling around. That's half the fun of it. Getting to see. I've been every state in the United States, every province in Canada, except for the upper tier ones. You know, the Northwest Territories and all. Mm-hmm. What I'm talking about is I was in Australia, New Zealand, all throughout Europe. I've enjoyed it.
Indeed, but another story maybe you can clarify for the fans at home. It's become part of wrestling lore over the years. Soon after you left the WWF, legend has it that you wound up under contract with WCW for many years. Is this true, Lanny?
Yes.
How many times did you ever wrestle for WCW?
I was involved in actually one match. What happened was I had a gimmick, Gorgeous George. I bleached my hair blonde and had some pictures made, and I bought about 10 gowns and different pairs of trunks and boots. And I had it all set, and my brother took him to the powers that be. They put me under contract, and I waited and waited, and the phone never rang. And they said they were going to use me. 1 month passed, 2 months passed. I kept training. I kept working out, tanning myself, doing whatever I could so I could be Gorgeous George when the time was right. I kept my hair blonde for 2 years. Finally, my hair all broke off, and I had to let my hair grow back natural.
Oh, so you actually dyed your hair blonde?
Yes.
Wow. Now, how long were you with WCW for?
I was under contract for 2.5 years.
Well, I guess it's a pretty good gig if you can get it, but I'm sure being the type of person that you are anxious to get in the ring and do your thing.
I wanted to, but the phone never rang. And they had a lot of chiefs and not enough Indians back then, and they were always changing the booking committees. Somebody be in power, then somebody be out of power, and they'd be changing things around. And finally, you know, that's the trouble when you book by committee instead of by a totalitarian government.
Right.
You know, one person usually gets his word across, or at least to be a head man. But otherwise, you know, everybody's got their own cliques and their own things. It worked out very well for me. However, it never took place. I will tell you, though, in all honesty, that I wouldn't have been a very good Gorgeous George. That's a very tough gimmick to live up to, and I just didn't have the hair for it.
Well, Lanny Poffo, it was a tremendous career. Fans at home right now, they might wonder where Lanny Poffo has been since the last time he was on television nationally, which has been over 10 years now. What about your brother, the Macho Man? It's been a while since he's been on regular television again.
I have been on TV nationally, and on the Tony Little infomercial, I've been on internationally. Remember that?
Yes, I remember many late nights having that pop on my screen late at...
Okay, and if you check on the LannyPoffo.com, you'll see in the videos department, you'll have 2 years of infomercials in 2.5 minutes right there.
All of the infomercials?
Yes, I mean, there were only 2, and they were back-to-back.
Well, you can check them out on LannyPoffo.com.
Yes, if that's what you're interested in. I mean, I don't know if that's the kind of entertainment you're looking for, but it's there for you.
It's there for you if you want that kind of entertainment. That's the way to put it. What is the Macho Man Randy Savage up to these days? It's been a while since we've seen him.
Oh, he's doing very, very well, thank you. He's 53 years old, and his voice is on Nickelodeon.
Oh, really? As what?
On the X's.
There you go. That's something I didn't even know. Is that a cartoon?
It's a cartoon on Nickelodeon called the X's. And he's got a very unmistakable voice. Can you imitate him?
I know someone in the studio that can do a very good Macho Man Randy Savage imitation. I do one, but I won't even go there. We'll do that off the air. Let me ask you this, Lanny. this day and age, a lot of the former WWF superstars from the 80s and even people that weren't even in the WWF are winding up with the WWE Legends contract, having action figures and DVDs and books produced. Are you a WWE legend as of yet?
No.
Will you be one in the future?
That's going to require a phone call.
They haven't called the Genius yet.
They have not called the Genius yet, nor have they called the Macho Man.
I find that
when
very
the phone
strange.
rings, I will pick it up.
Considering a lot of the DVDs of people they've put out recently, I'm sure a lot of fans would love to see a Macho Man Randy Savage 3-disc DVD set with some of his classic matches and interviews.
Well, they just had Jake the Snake Roberts on, and you'll see that I was his first match in Madison Square Garden.
Yes, you're on the DVD, that's right. We had a Jake the Snake Roberts situation with the Iron Cheek back in November, similar to the Iron Cheeks.
Well, what happened?
Well, Jake the Snake was supposed to appear at our big Soul Survivor 3 event and fan convention, and Jake the Snake Roberts decided to stay home. And that's the Cliff Notes version of it, because the week leading up to the show, Lanny, only you, as someone that spent time around the man and around the business, could truly appreciate what I went through that week, all to have him not even show up.
Right. That was when... who didn't show up that night, that time that we were supposed to...
Oh, it's when you came up back in October 2004, it was the infamous Mouth of the South Jimmy Hart. Jimmy was supposed to come up with you on the same flight, as a matter of fact, and then...
And I'll tell you what, the flight was sold out except for the seat next to me.
Exactly. So Jimmy Hart decided to stick it to the fans, and instead of coming to the BostonWrestling.com WrestleFest reunion, he went with Hulk Hogan and his daughter to a seafood festival in North Carolina. What kind of a man would do that to his fans, Lanny?
Somebody that likes seafood, I guess.
Someone that likes seafood.
But
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, in Boston, I think you can find the best seafood in the world.
Without a doubt. You are a big
Hey,
fan of the Boston area, as a matter of fact, are you not?
What's that?
I said you're a big fan of the Boston area, are you not?
Sure I am. I like Boston. The Boston Garden is a place where history is made. The glory of the Celtics and the Bruins shall not fade. I hear they're going to tear it down, but that would be a crime. We'll take a cup of kindness yet for days of old lang syne. You see the banners hanging from the rafters up above. Bostonians still look upon these artifacts with love. My name is Lanny Poffo, and I'm very proud to say I've been to Boston Garden, Massachusetts, USA. And the other one I wrote was for the great Ted Williams. May I do that?
Absolutely.
Okay. Let's see. How did it begin? Let me think. Okay, I'm sorry. Excuse me. In all of the magnificence that is Jorabi Stadium, the Marlins and the Dolphins' happy home, it gives me pride to introduce a man who was to baseball what Romulus and Remus were to Rome. Take 95 until you hit the Massachusetts Turnpike. Get off at Fenway Park and there you are. Where back in 1941, a man hit 406, and even now Ted Williams has no power. America anticipated every turn at bat to watch him knock the ball to smithereens. 521 home runs are even more incredible because he gave 5 years to the Marines. The boys who wrote the sports page never did him any favors, but for Cooperstown they had to tell the truth, that Theodore Samuel Williams brought a splendor to the game, reminiscent of the late George Herman Ruth. Thank you. And then Ted Williams grabbed me and started crying, and he said, if I'd have had you for a press agent, I'd have never had any problems.
Lanny, you could have had a second career that you didn't even know of, but it's still not too late. You're still young at heart, and that's all that counts.
Well, I'm talking about career I'm not worrying about, because wealth is not how much you got, it's how little you need. And I've already reached the point of what I call, not saturation, but I can survive and I can thrive. Now I want to arrive. And by arrive, I want to make a difference in the world. I want the next 29 years to be dedicated to my fellow man. No man stands taller than when he stoops to help a child. And we have a problem, and I'm going to repeat it again. 4,000 children every single day in the United States start smoking. And I can make it 3,999, and my life will have been worthwhile.
Lanny Poffo, you have a passion for smoking, a passion for professional wrestling. We thank you for joining us on this program. We're almost out of time. It was a tremendous interview. We look forward to having you on this program again and maybe even coming up sometime in the near future to the Boston area again. Any final thoughts for the fan at home before we go to the break?
Yes, I got one little thing to say. Drive defensively, drink plenty of distilled water. Check out my website for goji juice because I'm in business with George the Animal Steel, and we'd like for you to team up with us.
Lanny, we did talk about that. I'm very, very interested in the upcoming months about getting involved in that. That juice sounds absolutely tremendous.
I'll tell you what, it puts lead in your pencil, and it's got 34 different uses. It's just excellent. Just look under LannyPoffo.com. Let's team up. And I'll get you on a three-way call with George the Animal Steel. Hey, Elizabeth.
Oh, we've had many conversations. He's been up for us before
Okay,
in the
we'll go
past,
eat the turnbuckles together.
Absolutely. Lanny Poffo, we're out of time. Thank you for joining us. We'll be back after this brief timeout with more news on MWF Full Throttle, March 4th.